last week's video, my fiance John and I explored the new antipsychotic medication to just recently be released called Cobenfy. And while I do think it is very exciting to discover what's on the forefront of psychiatry and how medication will change moving forward, it is also very important to acknowledge the pre-existing medications that still affect people today. I have been taking medication since I was 15 or 16 years old. Somewhere around like spring of 2009, I think, and I have been on so many, maybe not as many as others, but certainly in my opinion, more than I would care to have tried. And there has been a lot of trial and error. There have been a lot that have worked. There have been a lot that haven't worked. There have been some that worked really well that just came with horrible side effects. And by side effects, I mean some really bizarre, strange, out there things that you would not expect a medication to cause to happen to your body. So let's talk today about medication side effects, the strange, the unconventional, and the downright embarrassing. Before we get started, I'd like to throw out a bit of a disclaimer to say that I am not a mental health care professional and I am in no way qualified to give any advice, medical or otherwise. And given the nature of this video, I would like to particularly throw out there that I am not the person to go to for medication advice. That is absolutely something I am not qualified to touch on. So for that, I would recommend seeing any kind of a doctor or prescriber, but certainly not a stranger on the internet. Who I am simply is a person with lived experience having serious mental illness who is here to share with you the wisdom and insight I've gleaned along my journey of mental health recovery. And finally, a trigger warning to say that the subject of psychosis and mental illness in general may at times be a difficult and sensitive subject to talk about. So if at any time during the video you may feel triggered by what I have to say, you are more than welcome to leave the video. In this video specifically, we will be talking about medication and a little bit about medical trauma. So if that is not up your alley, you are more than welcome to leave. Anyway, like I said, I've been medicated for a really long time on a lot of different things. And I don't just take medication for my schizoaffective disorder, which is what I primarily talk about on here. I actually have 5 conditions, 5 that I guess are like worth talking about because there's more than 5. They're just not all like that, prominent. So I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I have narcolepsy, those are my chronic illnesses. As far as mental illnesses go, I have the schizoaffective, which in my case looks like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, and I have borderline personality disorder and CPTSD, which is complex trauma, the kind of PTSD you get from a long sustained period of trauma. So I've got a lot to work with. I have been on amphetamines, mood stabilizers, antidepressants, antipsychotics, heart medication, nightmare medication, anxiety medication. Like I've been on a lot of different things. And in fact, I'll actually read to you a list of what I can remember that I've been on. I might be missing a few things, but this is kind of the gist of it. So I've been on mirtazapine, olanzapine, hydroxyzine, Latuda, lamotrigine, Seroquel, lithium, risperidone, I'll never get that right, Abilify, Ativan, Lexapro, Depakote, Prazosin, Buspar, Trazodone, Carvedilol, Guanfacine, Adderall, Vyvanse, Daytrona, Nuvigil, Ritalin, and Sunosi. Normally, I don't really disclose what medication I'm on for a couple of reasons. One, what works for me will not work for everyone, and I absolutely do not want to give anyone the false impression that if they take what I take, they'll get better. They may not. It may not work. They may have horrible side effects. And I know this because in my family, a lot of us have taken the same medications with different results. I've had terrible side effects to medications that my family swear by, whereas my wonder drug sent my sis to the hospital. And second of all, I've discovered that there are people who like to play trauma Olympics or disability Olympics and will try to compare the medication to mine in a way of like validating themselves or invalidating me. Like for instance, I knew a guy that was asking me about a medication we both took and what dosage I was on. And he was like kind of rubbing it in my face that he took a higher dosage than me. And I don't really see the benefit of that. Like, I don't see how it's constructive in any way to want to be like the highest medicated person in the room. I don't see what kind of a trophy that gives you. Like, I don't think that's healthy thinking. But I will reveal a little more about myself in this video than I normally do. I'm not going to tell you my current regimen. I will, however, say that as a person with schizoaffective and all the other things, I do take a combination of 2 mood stabilizers and an antipsychotic, and I treat my narcolepsy with stimulants. The past medications, however, I'm going to go a little more in detail about that because I do really want to illustrate exactly why I don't tell people what medication I take. I'm going to show to you exactly how my side effects versus those of my family were completely different on the exact same drugs. Starting off, let's talk about antipsychotics. Of everything I have ever been on, antipsychotics gave me the worst side effects. They have a gnarly reputation, and a lot of people choose to go off of their medication because the side effects are that bad. And yes, they are that bad. I've wanted to go off of them before. I have gone off of them before. And not only is it like 1 or 2, it's a ton across many different medications. I had to try so many different antipsychotics to get on one that didn't give me side effects, except for just making me like a little thirsty. Seroquel, aka quetiapine, was a heavy hitter. This is the first medication that affected me much differently than the rest of my family. I have 3 relatives in my immediate family who take Seroquel and have been taking Seroquel for over a decade, and each of them swears by it. They love it. They can't live without it. It is a miracle drug to them. Me, worst antipsychotic I've ever been on. Hands down, the worst. And really, it was only, well, it was a few side effects actually, but it was really just one heavy hitter that got me running away from that drug, and it was the Tardive Dyskinesia. Tardive Dyskinesia is a kind of like motor function disorder, and it can be caused by antipsychotics, and it can be permanent. Fortunately for me, it was not, because I got off of Seroquel very quickly and was able to stop that, but it took over the control of my mouth and my toes, and I wouldn't stop moving. I would look like I was high, and it was very embarrassing because I couldn't stop myself from like making my lips mash together and twitch around. It would kind of look like this, like that all day, constantly. And it was very concerning. I could tell it was happening, but I didn't realize how obvious it was. My fiance was like, yeah, that's a little freaky. So we went to the doctor. Actually, I think I saw a commercial for Tardive Dyskinesia medication and was like, that's the thing. And we went to my doctor and switched to a different medication, and it went away. I also had like really strange nighttime behaviors, and it was very, honestly, like kind of like being in a haze, where every night without fail, I would get up out of bed and I would eat. And this is where the weight gain comes in, because weight gain is a huge symptom or side effect of antipsychotics. And for me on Seroquel, I would literally get up in the middle of the night and start baking. I would like make a cake, and then while it was baking, I would cook other food. I'd eat like pasta or broccoli, or like I would literally not just be eating snacks. I would be full out cooking in this stupor, in this haze of being half awake. And by the time the cake was done, I would have finished my broccoli or whatever and just leave the cake, and then find it the next day and be like, okay, I guess I baked last night. It was pretty weird. And while that just may sound like a really strange behavior, let me tell you that was not something that had ever happened to me before. I've had insomnia, but when I'm insomniatic, I am fully conscious. I am aware, and I'm not binge eating. In this state, it was like I was sleepwalking. I would sometimes wake up and there would be a trail of cereal leading into my bedroom, and there would be like 3 empty bowls next to my bed. And I'd be like, okay, so I guess I ate cereal last night. Sometimes I would literally wake up with an empty bowl in my bed next to my pillow, and I wouldn't know how it got there. It was like sleep eating. It was really, really weird. And yeah, the weight gain makes sense with that because you're eating in your sleep every night. But the weight gain happened to me on pretty much every antipsychotic I was on, and it was more than just eating in my sleep. I didn't have that behavior with any other medication, but every other antipsychotic caused weight gain in some form, and every single time I would balloon like really fast. The least amount of weight I have gained on an antipsychotic was about 40 to 45 pounds, which at the time seemed pretty significant because I had never fluctuated in size ever. And this was the first time that I actually had to go up a size in clothes. So it seemed pretty intense. But the last time actually that, when I went on Seroquel, I gained 70 pounds and I went from being 130 pounds to 200 pounds in just a few months. And that was a wake-up call. That was really drastic. And it was pretty shocking, pretty alarming to see my body change so quickly and so drastically, and to go up 4 or 5 sizes in clothes. I think I went from being a size 4 to a size 14, and I had to buy all new clothes. It was very embarrassing. And I don't think people talk enough about how hard the weight gain is on your self-esteem. Now, I know that goes without saying, but believe me, it is very embarrassing to literally balloon in front of people's eyes so quickly. Everyone you know goes from thinking of you as this tiny little waif to a chonky girl. And so my weight loss has, it's been hard. I would say it's been very hard. Every time I would go on a new antipsychotic, I would just undo all the progress I'd made in the years it had taken to lose all the weight. So I tend to yo-yo a lot, and I would just go from being up in the 8, 10, 12 sizes to 2, 4, 6, then up again, down again, up again. And it's like a toll on your body. It's a shock to your body to be constantly changing like that. And I always think when I lose the weight that this is it, this is for good, and then my meds will be adjusted and it starts all over again. And again, that's happened on pretty much every antipsychotic I've ever been on. So that's been the Risperdal, the Zyprexa, the quetiapine, the Latuda, the Abilify, everything. Now, I do want to touch on 2 in particular that have both caused the most terrifying side effect I've ever had that I didn't realize could happen multiple times after getting off of one medication and switching to another, and that is lactation. Now, again, this isn't going to be everyone's experience, but I have discovered that this is more common than I would have ever expected. And I had lactation on Zyprexa and Risperdal. And it was alarming because absolutely no one had ever told me this could be a side effect. Of course, you know about the weight gain, you know about the dystonia and then the akathisia, but no one ever told me lactation, where literal milk is coming out of your breasts, would be a side effect. And I didn't see how that could possibly be related. How on earth could a psych med affect your prolactin levels? Well, mine did. Imagine the shock and terror of being a not sexually active young 20-something woman who has never, ever, ever been pregnant or given birth, spontaneously just leaking milk. Now, I know that's probably uncomfortable, especially for male viewers to hear, but this is a real side effect that is absolutely deserving of respect that people should know about, because no one told me. And after it happened to me, I discovered so many people that also went through this. But, I didn't have the comfortability of, knowing what to expect. So I thought I was going through breast cancer. I thought there had to be some sort of a female problem that I was having, some sort of a reproductive problem, I don't know what, but it freaked me out. My mom had breast cancer. And so of course that was where my thinking went, was, oh my God, I have it too. I had no idea how this could happen to someone who didn't have kids. I saw my doctor about it, who sent me to an endocrinologist. The endocrinologist had me do an MRI, and I was scared shitless for the weeks it took to finally get the results, just to find out that, oh, it's your medication. You have really high prolactin levels, and it's because of your medication. That would have been nice to know in the first place. I would have really appreciated if like my doctor had warned me about the side effects before taking these medications. In fact, I don't think I've ever had a doctor tell me side effects when I go on new medication. Yeah, I can't remember that being a thing. I always find out firsthand when it happens to my body unexpectedly. But you know what? I will tell you about one medication that didn't cause any side effects that, again, may not work for me the same way it works for others. Lamotrigine, aka Lamictal, was one of my very first medications. It was the second mood stabilizer I ever took after Depakote. Depakote also didn't cause any side effects in me, which was great. And basically when I was put onto Lamictal, I was basically told, yeah, it's a lot like Depakote, but you know, it's gonna treat you better. Like it's not gonna have as much harm on you in the long run. So I've actually been on Lamictal since like 2010. And yeah, that's what, almost 15 years. So it's treated me very well. It's treated my sister well. It's treated my mom well. My other sibling, not so much. They actually had a terrible reaction immediately upon taking it. Like within the first week of taking Lamictal, they had terrible hives, like a huge full body rash, and they actually had to go to the ER. This is a known side effect specifically of Lamictal that I think people are probably more aware of than the others because it can be so severe. And this was the case for my siblings. So again, this is why I don't tell people specifically what medication I'm on, because this medication has been my tried and true for almost 15 years. It has never failed me. It has never caused me side effects, and it wanted to fucking kill my siblings. So again, see, this is why I don't get into the, you know, the nitty gritties. Okay. This is exactly why I don't talk like that. I don't know what exactly caused that effect in them, but I've heard that it can be caused by going on too high of a dosage too fast. I don't know that that's for sure. Like, this is just what I've heard through the grapevine, but it does lead me to a cautionary tale I want to share with you about why you really, really, really need to find a good prescriber who you can trust with your life. That is not hyperbole, because I have experienced firsthand some absolutely terrible medical trauma from a psychiatrist who should not have a license. And I am not the only one of his patients that he's done dirty. He has a track record for mistreating multiple people, like a lot of people, okay? I saw this man when I first moved to Washington. I lived on a small island, and so he was really the only psychiatrist in the area. You know, it's very hard to find like a lot of options when you're on an island. So I was going to him, and he had me on a giant cocktail of medication at extremely high dosages. At this point, I wasn't diagnosed with schizoaffective, but I was diagnosed with some other things. I'd been misdiagnosed with bipolar up until that point. So you'd at least think he'd try to treat that. Well, not so much. He just kind of threw everything in the kitchen sink at me, and it ultimately resulted in one of my worst psychotic episodes. He actually put me into psychosis with his malpractice. I found out later that my mom, who had taken me to the ER during my psychotic episode to be treated, was told by the ER doctor after seeing my list of medication that this was astounding and wrong, and that there's no way anyone should be prescribing these things together. He was just like disgusted by my doctor for treating me like this. And so he actually sent like an order to my doctor to say, hey, I'd like you to put her on this medication because she's acutely psychotic, thanks to you. Not the thanks to you part wasn't included, but I mean, literally thanks to you. And this doctor was so petty and spiteful that he did put me on it, but at an astronomical dose, which just worsened the psychosis. Could you imagine being a doctor so petty that when another doctor tries to like ask you to treat someone correctly, you intentionally make it worse? This guy shouldn't be teaching or treating anyone. After my psychotic episode, I went to a clinic in the area, and when I told them who I'd been seeing, they actually had a massive file on him with lots of accounts from many patients who'd been through similar experiences. He had been doing this to a lot of people, a lot. I was very skeptical of finding a good prescriber after that, and unfortunately it was still really hard because I still was seeing prescribers who weren't treating me properly For instance, I had another prescriber after him who also put me into psychosis because she was under medicating me. She just couldn't be bothered. She did not want to do anything with me. Like, I would see her every month and we would have one of those like telehealth appointments over the computer. And I would say, I feel like I'm going psychotic. Can you increase my medication? And she'd say, no, you're fine. I mean, these appointments were always 15 minutes, like never any more than 15 minutes. And she just couldn't be bothered. So I went psychotic even though I'd been telling her for months that I could feel it coming on. Finally, I found the prescriber of my dreams, who has been such an angel in my life and a total game changer in my mental health recovery. I've been seeing her for 2 or 3 years now, and in that time, I have for the most part been mentally stable, and I've been stable on medication thanks to her. When I first started seeing her, it was rough. I was not doing well. I was very, very, very low, but she got me there and I'm thriving today. And I really must say, like, it can take so much trial and error. It can take trying over 20 different medications to get there. It can take yo-yoing your weight for a decade. It can take lactation and tardive dyskinesia, but it is possible to get there on medication. It is absolutely possible to thrive on medication and get to the point where you have a great quality of life on meds. Now, I know the side effects are a deterrent for a lot of people, and I know a lot of people want to give up. I get a lot of people asking me if there are alternatives, and like, yes, there are, but I've never tried any myself, so I can't really speak on them. What I can say about medication is that I wanted to give up too. And I tried to give up a few times, but I always found out that I needed to stay on it. It is something that I will have to take every day for the rest of my life. That was a hard pill to swallow, pun intended, but I accepted it, and my life is wonderful today. I need medication. I don't even think twice about it anymore. First thing I do in the morning is I take my meds. I don't even really think about it because it's my life. It's how I take care of myself. It's what I need to do to keep myself well, and I don't really feel like that's such a huge sacrifice. Was it really hard and grueling to get there? Yes. Was it worth it? Also yes. So I feel that, you know, for anyone out there who may feel like a guinea pig, who may feel like they haven't found the right combination or dose or medication yet, you know, I felt that way for a really long time too, but I held on to hope, and it got me through a lot of really, really bad situations. You know, I had to go through a lot of psychosis to get there, but I got there. I'm stable. Thank God. I owe it to my meds. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. So thank you so much for watching my video. I truly appreciate it. If you'd like to support my channel, you are more than welcome to subscribe and like and comment on this video. Also, I have cool merch, so if you'd like to check out any fun swag, you can look at the link to my shop in the description box. I put out videos every Thursday/Friday, so if you're interested in more content, there's plenty coming soon. I'll see you all in the next one. Thanks. Bye.